film in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the commentary track for 1988's Akira, based, of course, on the manga series Akira. This is one of the rare forms where the creator of the manga is also the director of the film, which is interesting. And of course, as we see the startup of the film, that we're in 1988 Tokyo on July 16th, and it looks like something's kind of destroyed Tokyo. So we're seeing this just bright screen in front of us, and we're not quite given any details as to what's happened. And then just this red splotch to kind of give sort of the destruction of Tokyo, if you will. And we slowly get that zoom, and we find out that we are 31 years after World War III in the year 2019. Oh, if only we were so lucky. As of recording, we're in 2021, and World War III has not happened. So here we sort of get this desolate crater, the title screen Akira popping up, and this bold red color. And then we're introduced to sort of the opening scene and our main characters that we will follow as this gentleman here comes into the bar. As someone's just changing the channels a lot. And we're sort of given that this is a seedy bar. And here we have who we will find out is Kameda. Or a few seconds ago, the gentleman in the red jacket, not this gentleman right here asking for 3 peanuts. There he is, Kameda, just sitting at the radio or jukebox. And here we have this sort of I'm a tough badass like fellow, who we will later find out maybe not so much. And playing with the music box. Very weird. Of course, for those who are watching the Blu-ray release and the 4K release, there are 3 audio tracks. You have the original Japanese, which is what I am currently watching. Then there is the 1989 English dub. And then there's the 2001 English dub. So you have options. Of course, this was also released on Laserdisc through the Criterion Collection, and I believe there are only 2 audio options for that, being Japanese and, of course, the original English dub, as that Criterion Collection release was in the late 90s, so before the English dub, which most people are probably familiar with, was released. And of course, we just got introduced to Tetsuo, and we see Kameda using his very special bike. One thing I will point out is that the colors are so amazing for this film. It's just fantastic. The art direction, color, just so fantastic. It's just absolutely beautiful. Now, as I was saying, in terms of releases, there of course is the Criterion Laserdisc version. There is the Funimation Blu-ray and 4K. One thing that I had just discovered recently is that apparently the 4K release by Funimation was apparently a limited time thing, as I was looking up on Amazon the other day, and it's just not available. Luckily, there is still the Australian release, so that's at least something good. And here we see the chase scene between the 2 gangs, our heroes gang and the clowns gang. And clearly there's a lot of destruction throughout the city, which is kind of amazing because you'd think that would be a little bit harder to do, even in this cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic, um, rebuilding of Tokyo that we have here. And here we have sort of Tetsuo having a bit of issues. He's you kind of get this he's a bit of a clumsy, sort of needs protecting type thing. And then we have the boss of the clown gang coming up here. And a bit more destruction, and the flames just look absolutely perfect. I can't praise the art style of this film enough. And that must have sucked. And you just hear the bone crunch in the sound design. And here we have Kameda going to play a game of chicken with sort of the leader of the clown gang. And who will kind of give up first type of deal. And here we see the clown gang sort of backing off for this to happen. And of course, who gets chickened? The clown. And right there is probably the most iconic shot from the movie, as that's been played up in pop culture. It's been in Adventure Time, it's been in Steven Universe, it's been in The Simpsons, it's been in all kinds of media have shown their own version of that scene. And it's just kind of amazing the way that just Akira does it with its original animation. It's all hand drawn and it's just amazing. And then these light streams also just fantastic. And then we get the shot of the city with all the different colors. And here we have sort of the beginnings of the central plot developing as we find out that there's a lot of riots because there's issues with the government and antitrust and all of these things. And then we sort of see this gentleman and this child running through the city. We're not exactly sure what's happening. The blood splattering all over the pavement as they're walking, and it really looks fantastic. I like the way that they demonstrated with the blood. Of course, the child will become sort of a major player later on, but at this point, we're not exactly told what's going on, and it's just this mystery as they're trying to figure it out. And unfortunately, those poor doggos had to bite the bullet. And sort of we see why these riots are happening because of tax reforms, and obviously it's really taking an effect on the city as you just see all these cars burning in the streets, destroyed, and these large groups of people. And here we have sort of these officers coming in to disperse the crowds. And in 2021, it's not very far off as to what's been happening in the United States, especially within the last year. And here we see another important character in the film, who we don't find out the name of until probably about halfway through, maybe 45 minutes into the film. She plays a very important role later on. The other weird thing about this scene is, had he not shot at the cops, I doubt there would have been any issues with him walking through, because they wouldn't have been trying to shoot him. And there you see that he's so full of bullets. Sorry that I lost my train of thought there for a moment and couldn't think of a word to use. Hurry, run away. And sort of at the moment, we are sort of given this. He didn't want to be with the authorities and that he wanted to escape. But as we will see here in a few moments, that doesn't seem to be the case. Also, definite overkill here with all those bullets just annihilating him. And then we sort of get this scene that, yes, this is just, this is not an ordinary child. This is something completely different. Run away! And just sort of vanishes before Kay's eyes. Ironically, in the original English dub, the other child that we just saw in the suit, um, he has a very adult voice rather than a child's voice. In the 2001 dub, he has a child's voice as well, so it's very strange that with the original dub, they went with this sort of I am a fully grown adult type thing. And here we have Tetsuo continuing the chase against the clown gang. And again, we get another beautiful shot of the city with the lights and the colors all throughout. There's an excellent mix of colors. I can't say that enough. And then you sort of get the conflict of going into disrepaired areas and seeing these riots happen. And again, the people running, and then they start using, I don't want to say tear gas, because it doesn't seem to be tear gas. It just seems to be sort of a smoke screen. And of course, the riot police here are not very sympathetic because they will treat civilians like shit. I believe there's one shot coming up here where one of the riot police just shoots somebody point blank with a grenade. Although it's not really a grenade, it's more of a smoke pellet. And here we see this gentleman just completely eating shit. And of course, Tetsuo just whacks, and then he runs into number 26, who causes the explosion. And this is where the sort of central conflict of the film begins, as Tetsuo has now become involved with this sort of shady government organization, as he will be taken away by the government because he was injured by number 26. And of course, Kaneda cares for his friend and really wants to help his friend. And of course, Kameda now sees Ryu walking off. And he doesn't know how to react, and then here comes the helicopters. And things kind of go to shit for our heroes. Of course, everything is generally kept secretive throughout most of the film. We don't quite know what these guys are up to, but as the film progresses, we start to get pieces and pieces, but there's always just enough kept secret that it keeps you trying to figure out what exactly is going on. Of course, if you've seen the film, then you know what's happened and what's about to happen. And here we see the Colonel, who, for the majority of the film, comes off as a huge asshole, but sort of has a redemption arc. Again, I won't try to spoil too much if this is your first time watching the film, Though for most, I feel like they're going to know what's happened. So here we see the gang sort of getting arrested. I always feel like that's a dick move when they just slam the head into the pavement. I feel like that could be sort of something you could get sued for. But I don't really know. I've never been in that situation. And again, you sort of get this real shady notion that Ryu really did want to escape. But again, later on, you find out that that's not quite the case. Terrible situation for our heroes. So now you have this sort of conflict going as they don't know where Tetsuo is being taken and they're just not sure of what's going on. And of course, the helicopters just peacefully leave and there's just no conversation happening. And of course, always lovely to be standing next to a dead corpse. Or I shouldn't say standing, I should say lying next to a dead corpse. And here we see that the Tokyo Olympics are coming. Ironic because in 2020 the Tokyo Olympics were supposed to happen and now they're being scheduled, provided pandemic willing. They're supposed to be scheduled for summer 2021. So a bit of irony there. Of course, I don't know how far the Olympics are planned, so maybe it was planned even back in 1988 when the film was being developed. And here we see Kaneda just being a teenage dick, as we know they are 15 years old. So the police realize that they weren't terrorists, so they are free to go. And they're told to bring in the next five. Unfortunately, we don't really get to see sort of the camaraderie around the gang for the most part, as there's only three characters that we kind of get a focus on. Well, four if you count Tetsuo, but only four, or three, are sort of seen after this scene plays out. And here we see this sort of Viva la Revolution fellow who has a dud grenade and gets the absolute shit kicked out of him. So that's a thing. But as I was saying before we got to this scene, I don't know if the Olympics are planned super far in advance. So maybe in 1988 they knew that the Tokyo Olympics would be happening in 2020. We're not exactly sure what date the movie is taking place at. We just know that it's 2019. But for all we know, it could be like late 2019, right? We just know that the commemoration date or ceremony is in 146 days, or was it 47? Something like that. So yeah, they're concerned about Tetsuo and his well-being and where he is. And of course, Kameda trying to be the smooth ladies' man that he's not, failing to get Kay's hand. and sort of she acknowledges Kameda, that Kameda saved her and that she owes him one. And of course, just walking into the traffic, completely normal. And there was a successful sort of terrorist attack inside the police station. And here we have the Executive Council's introduction as one member is talking with the colonel. Of course, there is that issue of political corruption. Though we aren't privy to that here, we are just told that there is political corruption, but we're not sure from who. So, phone call for the colonel, so he's off to take that phone call. Very interesting, sort of how movies that take place in the future still use very modern day technology, or modern for the time. Like, there's no cell phones or anything. It was literally a phone that was just built into the desk. So here we see that Tetsuo is being experimented on. Yes, the special pattern. And this scientist is very obsessed with sort of the Akira test and the Akira sort of scientific significance. So, hooray. Most of the conflict with the film could be avoided if they didn't just fuck with Tetsuo or keep him so much in the dark. If it wasn't for keeping him in the dark, I think things would have possibly, the outcome would have been more pleasant and better. And as you can see, the colonel wants to know if they can control this power this time. But it is untested and unknown. Yes. So they believe it is sort of the power of God. And finally, we have Tetsuo starting to hear the voice, or voices, of Akira. Of course, we see that nobody takes school seriously here. This is definitely a sort of miscreant, uncaring sort of school district school, and just no one cares. And of course, here we have the scene where the boys are being disciplined by being punched in the face. And I'm sure some teachers would love to do that to their students. And then you just see the gang being pissed and just wanting to kick the shit out of their teacher. And then here we see sort of their partners, if you will. None of them really play an important role in the film for the most part. And then you see them smoking, just being miscreants. Also, the vomiting of blood there. kind of a massive dick to them as well. And you hear the running, you don't see who's running. But as we're about to find out, it was young Tetsuo. Yes, so Tetsuo has ran away from the facility and somehow knows exactly where he is and where to go, which is kind of the more impressive part of that, is that he just perfectly knows to go in this direction, knows his way around. Granted, I don't know how big Neo Tokyo is, but I assume that it would be quite large. Eating a sandwich and drinking some Coke. And explaining that he was examined and that he thinks they've done something to him. He seems to be well aware that he was surgically, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but that surgery was performed on him. And it looked like they were supposed to go through some sort of engine class, but no teacher. And then here we see that someone is messing with Kameda's bike. And here we can see that it's Tetsuo. Not sure where Tetsuo got clothes, but you know. One thing that I will also comment on with the English dub is that the actors who play in the 2001 dub, Johnny Young Bosch, and his name escapes me at the moment, and I apologize, but the person who does Tetsuo's voice, have a bit of history together as, of course, Johnny Young Bosch is Vash the Stampede in Trigun, and the person who voices Tetsuo voices Knives in the same series. They have a lot of roles where they sort of play off each other, and it fits really well with the English dub. Of course, I am listening to the Japanese dub of the film, but it was something that I wanted to point out that if you wanted to see some great chemistry between two actors in an animated role, then I would recommend listening to the 2001 dub. If you're a fan of dubs, of course. There's nothing wrong with being a fan of Japanese original audio. And here we see that the clowns sort of found them and is about to burn the bike when here comes the gang to the rescue. Now, one thing that I would figure would be quite dangerous and actually hurt quite a bit and possibly cause serious damage is jumping off of a moving vehicle, as I would think that the momentum would possibly cause the ligaments in your leg to rip off. And of course, the beautiful scene where he just jumps on the bike and just kicks the guy in the face. Fantastic. And Tetsuo is just pissed and just beating the shit out of this guy. Just terrible. Kameda sort of playing that lecturer role, lecturing Tetsuo on maybe you shouldn't kill this guy, this is overkill, maybe you should stop. And here we see that Tetsuo is very tired of being saved by Kameda all the time. And Tetsuo is just too pissed, and now we see that Tetsuo is starting to feel the effects of the experiment, and we're seeing some foreshadowing here with the visions in his head. And again, we're just starting to see some things. And at this point, they're only visions, but very graphic visions, as we can see that Tetsuo is reacting to his organs falling out, and he wants to put them all back in. And then the monitoring situation notices the blue dot, and they're like, oh shit, get the subject back. He needs his medication now. But of course, instead of telling Tetsuo and his friends what is going on, they keep everything secretive, creating more problems for them than having solved their problems. And of course, this random ass sort of Secret Service guy. I also love that he spits out a tooth and it's never paid attention to again. Just like, oh yeah, I got pushed and shoved and had to spit out a tooth, but who cares? It's sort of a one and done thing. So Tetsuo has been carried off once again. And sort of this great visual coloring here. It's one of the things I absolutely love about this film is just how great the colors look. You can tell that there was a budget behind this movie. As a matter of fact, until Kiki's Delivery Service came out, this was the highest budgeted anime film of all time. Again, until Kiki's Delivery Service came out, it had a budget of roughly $5.5 million. So you can tell that they really put their all into it. It's shot on 35 millimeter. The colors really pop, and the animation is very fluid, and it really shows. So here we see that a terrorist bombing has been committed, so everybody's just trying to get the hell out of there. Again, there are some sort of almost washed out color scenes, but for the most part, the colors are really, really vibrant. And here we see that Kay is about to go on her mission. She's being separated from her partner, and so now they're just trying to escape. Sorry, my voice just kind of wanted to do its own thing there, and my throat just wanted to stop talking for whatever reason. But now they're trying to escape. Kameda has seen Kay and doesn't know what's going on and is going to assist. Very brave of Kameda, and of course, you know, sewer water. Always nice to drink. And she shoots the guard in the face. The blood really pops too. I've noticed that when characters are bleeding, just a really great job on that. and Kay is kind of in shock that she's actually killed somebody. And of course, drinking sort of sewage water. I definitely think one would vomit. So here we see Tetsuo once again sort of being monitored by the lab, and we get sort of this backstory of the character through silent visuals. We sort of see that he was given up and that Kamada has been with him ever since he was given up, and the two are childhood friends. And again, sort of a bit of foreshadowing going on here with the crumbling of the city around him. Of course, that's not really a part of his memory, but he's having these nightmares and he doesn't understand what is happening. As he's starting to get his powers. And here we meet subject 25. It's not really known when they're first brought into the fold. As you can see that they looked quite aged, but they're very much in a child's body. And now she is describing a dream that she's had. Again, more foreshadowing. So here we have met 25 and 26 so far. We can only assume that the other child that was in the suit is number 24, but we never see his number, and his number is never mentioned, so it's never confirmed what number he is. Although maybe it does show his number at some point and I've just never noticed it, but they do never bring up his number, so it's quite possible we won't see it. And here we see the Olympic Stadium in the overshot. At least I think that was the stadium. Or it could have just been the helipad. My apologies. Oh, wait, yes, this was the Olympic Stadium because they're going underground. I'm not exactly sure what the coats exactly do because their heads are still exposed as well as their legs. So I don't know why the coats would have been necessary. And as you can see here, they're not wearing the coats anymore. So very, very strange. And here we see that there's just no sort of soul in the city. Although that might have been a flashback, and that's why I said, see, they're not even wearing coats anymore, because here we see that they're wearing coats again. So my bad there again. $160. Uh, if what? Okay. I don't ever recall that the other dubs mentioned temperature, but Kelvin would seem ridiculously hot, I would think. But whatever. So here we see them opening this vault door. And we see the breath off of them, which makes me think, like, isn't. Again, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but I would think that something that is Kelvin temperature would be extremely hot. I didn't know that Kelvin temperatures could go into very cold, but again, it seems I am wrong. And here we see Akira. And then we see Kay is looking for Ryu, who cannot be found. And Kameda is again trying to just get a date. And Kay has been reunited with her team. Of course, they don't know who the fuck Kameda is, and, things kind of go pretty badly for Mr. Kameda because he's too naive. How convenient that he just randomly has a key. And then, sort of, we get this. This is what we have to do. We have to break into the lab. And we find out that they're trying to break in to get Tetsuo. But we're not really sure why they're trying to grab Tetsuo, or why even they were trying to grab Subject 26. And we see that Kameda has escaped bathroom, but he's about to tell them that he knows Tetsuo. So he now becomes a part of the group. Of course, they want to use him as a decoy, but he's at least part of the team. Decoy or not. And here we're about to see our first notion of government corruption, as we see this gentleman being told of the situation. We don't know if he's sleazy or not yet, but soon that is about to be revealed. Again, nice city shops here. I always love the details in the city shots. It really shows that they wanted to really give you a sense of this world living. And here we see sort of the profits of Akira. Also, $5 for a pamphlet. I don't know if I would pay that. Of course, it's 500 yen, which translates into about $5 American, I do believe. And I think that's 531 Canadian. My math could be off. So yes, here we see sort of the council our first reveal of the council, and we can see that he's a part of it, as well as that other gentleman in the beginning. And then we have the colonel. So it's kind of bizarre that the council wants them to break in, or that council member wants them to break in and grab Tetsuo. Obviously, we're really seeing sort of that betrayal and corruption within the government trying to gain leverage. And of course, the arguing. Just too much arguing. Bureaucrats, am I right? And again, nobody knows what the hell is going on, or what Akira is, or what subject number is Akira. So, there's just this disagreement, and they just want the riots to stop, but they don't want to keep just throwing money at things. And again, the accusations that Akira's not a thing, and trying to use it to sort of fire up the riots. So there's sort of this bureaucratic combat to the colonel's plans. So that's pretty much the only shot of the entire council that we get for the entire movie. And here we are back at the lab. And here we see that Tetsuo is not having a great time sleeping. And here we see that his powers are really starting to take hold as he just kind of uses the force to grab the cup. And again, this movie is almost like a horror film, as we're about to see here in a few seconds with this scene. It's just this crazy bullshit is about to start. And here we see the spy infiltration. Bringing the workers in to change some cables. 'Cause cables. So they're able to get in. And that's exactly what they're gonna do. They're gonna get in. And here we see Tetsuo just sort of lose his mind. As we start to see some toys just come to life. Everything sort of seems innocent, and the music just sort of begins to get louder and louder, slowly and slowly. And then you just kind of see. And then he just tries to grab them, but there's nothing there. And again, this scene is kind of incredible just because shit just kind of hits the fan. It's almost The nightmare sequences are just pretty crazy, and that's why I say this movie could almost be a horror movie, because you've got the crazy sort of toy madness, and then of course later on in the film, the actual madness of losing control of your powers. And so everything becomes building blocks and giant teddy bears and like it's just toys, almost as if a child was causing these. And of course, the weird liquid that we find out is milk. Now, the odd thing that we're about to find out as he cuts his foot, that it's the children that for whatever reason they're causing these nightmares to happen or these visions to happen, and it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And they call him a jerk, and it's like, what the hell is wrong with you? You assholes caused this. You're freaking him out, and he broke his a glass on his foot. You're calling him a jerk for it? No, you assholes are the jerk. So again, we can see now that subject 26 never wanted to leave in the first place. So that's a thing. And it's unknown why they called him a jerk or why anything happened. It was just this fucking weird thing that happened. Again, the movie doesn't outright tell us what's going on. It gives us everything in pieces, but always keeps a mystery going. Yes. And here we see that the door has been just torn to shreds. And it's not really known where he got the bandages for his foot. And here we see that Tetsuo's powers have started to unlock as he just rips through the doctor and the guards, and his powers are really starting to come out. And again, had they told him what was going on instead of keeping him in the dark, most of the facility's problems would have never happened. And of course, now we see that the team is starting to find their way to the lower levels. And of course, sewer water. Just excellent. So they're trying to hide. And of course, you get the scene of the dead rat filled with maggots, and it's just like, oh, fuck. Like, it's just this disgusting scene. And you're just like, that's been sitting in the water for how long? And you just fucking sat in that, like, oh. So Shimazaki is dead, and they have been discovered. And they just don't know what to do. And Kay grabs one of the automatic weapons. She doesn't know how to use it because she's never used one before. So, her first time firing doesn't go so well, but the guard does sort of lose control of his vehicle because of it and dies in an explosion. So, despite the fact that she doesn't know how to handle the gun, her mission is successful. And he, of course, being his insane self, jumps and takes care of a guard. But his machine is still operational. And so Kay just sort of stands there not knowing what to do. And needless to say, Kameda doesn't know how to operate a machine gun either. So he starts to try to figure it out. And then, for whatever reason, and I don't, again, there's a lot of mystery to things. Number 25 starts to help out the crew. Great shot here. Just a fantastic shot of sort of the facility and all of its wiring. Again, I love the wide shots. They're just fantastic. So here we find out through the radio that Tetsuo's on the loose and he's just not giving a so he's just going through the facility, heading towards the baby room. Again, not 100% sure if he knows where he's going exactly, but that's where he's headed. And of course, the guards are trying to stop him using the smoke grenades and things like that. And of course, Tetsuo doesn't realize that he has powers, but he's starting to, and he's starting to use them and getting a hang of it. And sort of the Akira theme starts hitting. And I mean the character theme, not the theme of the movie. To kind of show that he is now becoming the villain of the film rather than just a bystander or the hero. We are establishing now that he is the villain of the film. And of course, giant satanic teddy bear. But of course, he now realizes that it's the other three. And he's just like, fuck you guys. This is not how we're playing this anymore. And of course, they're sort of setting up to kill Tetsuo and run away. Again, it's all very weird because nothing is explained. Had they explained things to Tetsuo before just keeping him in the dark, maybe most of this could have been avoided. So it's all very bizarre. And of course, 25 has now communicating through K. Of course, this scene is very weird that they would keep her in a bubble where she can't hear them or they hear her, unless, of course, through telepathy. And again, Tetsuo is just like, you tried to fuck with me, so now I'm taking my revenge. So he's justified as a villain, as it's like, had you just fucking told me what was going on, none of this would have happened. So now he's sort of, you get this psychic fight between the four of them, and it's causing the deterioration of the room and the facility as the walls start to crumble and the floor starts to crumble. And again, had Tetsuo, I know I keep repeating myself, but had Tetsuo been told what was going on, everything would have been fine. But because they kept him in the dark, they're just screwed. Because despite the fact that Tetsuo's becoming the villain, he's also scared. He doesn't know what's happening, but he wants revenge for those things. I like that they call him big people when he's only like 15, so it's like, what the fuck? Big people. And again, just this name. So there's this concern about awakening Akira. And of course, no one tells him where he is. And of course, a bit more foreshadowing when the colonel said Akira's already ... dot dot dot. And here we see the alert going out for the fact that the integrity of the facility is starting to die. And here's our heroes. I like that they took that into the elevator as well. Like, it doesn't seem to be like that it wouldn't be able to fit. So yeah, here we see that the ceiling's starting to collapse and whatnot. That poor guy getting crushed. Get the hell out of the way. It's also very odd that Tetsuo doesn't kill the children now, because it definitely seems like he'd be able to. And that just had to suck. So now Kameda and Tetsuo have been reunited. Again, he's starting to gain control of his powers, but he still doesn't quite understand them. And again, the more he gets control of his powers, the more of a villain he becomes. There's also a small battle of egos here. I feel if Kameda wasn't so egotistical and talked down to Tetsuo, he would have had better luck in calming Tetsuo down. And here we see it's too late. It's all over. And now we see that Tetsuo's kind of like, huh, I can fly. And he's just officially lost his mind. Creepy gray skinned children. I will say this, they're very unlikable characters. Like, there's no reason that they should have been fucking with Tetsuo. And, like, all of this damage is technically their fault on top of that. Why you would build an Olympic stadium over, an underground facility housing what could be a very destructive being is a goddamn mystery. Seems like a poor choice, you fucking idiots. Again, they look creepy as hell. They almost look like dolls come to life. And now the Colonel is taking things extra seriously. He is taking no shit from anybody. And here we kind of find the corruption has gone beyond anything. Supreme Executive Council. The Colonel gives no shits. They're just like, shoot him. It's nice to see that the soldiers have a loyalty to the Colonel. It's not just like, oh, everyone's gonna turn on him. And the Colonel just goes about his business. It's amazing just how like the Colonel takes command like that. Like there's no fucks given. It's just like, yeah, arrest these assholes. And it's like, then why was there even any talks to begin with? And here we see Tetsuo has come to the bar. Yes, he was, and then he was operated on and became a super being. And he thinks he's going to be able to get money out of Tetsuo. Ha! Not on your life, sir. Not on your life at all. Unfortunate for him. He was a bit, killed and trashed. And again, these are the other two gang members that I had mentioned that the film sort of focuses on. They're not super focused on. As a matter of fact, one of them dies here. And we're not really given any backstory or anything like that to these characters. But it's the only two that we see, with the exception of Kameda and Tetsuo. sort of questioning if this is in fact Tetsuo. And also that tease of him being dead. And then there's that realization that Tetsuo was the one who killed the bartender. And also really wants that bike. And the big mistake is trying to be macho and a tough guy. Yamagata pays for it. Of course, we don't see his death. It all takes place off screen. And then we sort of find out what Akira is. It's not necessarily a person, it's an energy source. It's a power source that destroys. Just devouring everything around it. Which is rather unfortunate. So we sort of get this monologue about what it is and sort of really getting into the plot point of if they can deal with it or stop it. But of course, we also get the notion that it's not Kei telling Kameda this, it's number 25. So now they go to make their escape. Although they also think it's a trap. Or at least Kameda does. So he goes to solve the problem. Well, not really solve the problem, but wants to see the trap. We never find out why they're always together. Or anything. Because this is also the end for him. Again, they choose to use K rather than use Kameda or use both of them. So, sort of foreshadowing again that maybe her powers are starting to unlock, as we find out later in the film that everybody has the power of Akira. It's just whether they unlock or not. And so here we see the massive military presence because they are in full force to capture Tetsuo. Oh, trust me, it was not an explosion. It was evisceration. Pure and simple. So now they have learned that Yamagata is dead and that it was Tetsuo who did it. And so now Kameda wants to give Yamagata a proper send off, so he asks for his bike. And we sort of get a bit of backstory. And then also Tetsuo wanted to know where his bike was. So here's Yatagama's bike, or Yamagata's bike, sorry. And he goes to crash it into the wall to send it to him. So, sort of a burial of sorts. And again, the children wanted to use K to fight Tetsuo. Or Tetsuo, sorry. And so they are allowing her to walk on water and disappear with them. So, sort of using her as a vessel to use their powers. So, yeah, we sort of get the Akira's powers in everyone and just need to awaken it. Almost as if it were like an X Factor type thing. The X-Men gene awakening in people. That's the only reference to X-Men I'm going to give. And for whatever reason, she gives this spiel that, oh yeah, Tetsuo is our friend and all these things. And it's like, then why were you such giant assholes to him? So here you see they're just like, oh shit, we gotta burn everything. And yeah, completely losing it. And this is where we find out that they are complete assholes and totally deserve this sort of military treatment. I do not know what those papers are. I know what the bills are, but I don't know what the other paperwork is. And it looks like he's murdered the two assistants and the other council member. And he assumes that Ryu has sold him out. So he goes to kill him. He's also beginning to suffer from a heart attack. And just shoots him. So Kei will never see Ryu again. And we don't know what the relationship that they had. And here you just see this helicopter just crash in glorious fashion. And of course, we all know that it's Tetsuo. Yes, attack. Kill him before you die. And I love that he sort of makes himself a cape out of a dress. just fires a shell at him and he blows it up before it hits him. Fantastic shit. You cannot defeat Akira. And of course, the religious folk are like, it's Lord Akira. It's Akira. And then sort of other people are like, it's not Akira and all this stuff. But of course, one thing that they're going to find out is that Tetsuo does not care about any of you. That's a lot of money and whatever those other papers are. As he's trying to run away. And somehow, despite being shot, Ryu is still chasing him. I don't know why he's still chasing him. And here the heart attack is taking effect. As he tries to open his medication. Now, one thing that you're not supposed to do with medication is put a shit ton of it in your mouth. It won't stop the heart attack. It might cause one or something else to happen. And Nezu has died from the heart attack. And Ryu just continues to walk and dies as well. Oh, there you go. It might be August of 2019. As everyone's just running for their lives. And then the news broadcast explaining what's happening. And we see Tetsuo, and there's shock, and she is immediately going to try to find him. Nobody cares about freedom of the press, sir. Run away. And then we find out where he's heading. And Kamida goes to grab his bike. This fucking thing is amazing. You never do see him put a key in. And here's the scene that we will find out that Tetsuo does not care about anyone at all. We worship the great Lord Akira. Consume our unclean hearts. Fantastic. And then we have lasers, which I don't think we have to this day. Just brutal fashion. And he's just like, fuck you guys. I'm about to turn this entire bridge into nothing. Amazing. They fire the shell into the bridge. And then all the supporters just, goodbye. You're dead. Good night. Farewell. You're done. Sir, there are no ground forces. There is nothing. It is amazing that they can still track his location. Nani? Yes, he's going to Akira. You know where he's going to. Yeah, he can walk on water. Relax. He's going to kill you. Don't worry about it. And the doctor's just looking at things. We as an audience don't understand exactly what's going on. The facility is slowly being destroyed as he's just going further and further down to the Akira pod. And now that I think about it, I guess the jackets were to keep them from freezing to death. So that makes more sense now. Now that I really think about it. And here's Kay to the rescue. Although, to be fair, if those jackets were needed, wouldn't Kay and Tetsuo have, you know, condensation from their breath? Like, again, I feel like had the kids explained something, half of this could have been avoided. It's so bizarre. Just vomiting blood. A lot of dead people. I love that he tries to sneakily steal it, and it's like, no one's going to stop you, okay? No one. And then for whatever reason, the battle raises up the containment unit, and it's like, what is the point of that? Why would you raise it from the dead? I say the dead, but it's neither alive nor dead. And everyone is just in shock. Goodbye, tank. And here we have the epic battle on top of this containment unit, complete with teleportations. The flashing lights are a nice touch as the stadium and everything around it continue to get super damaged from the fight. Not exactly sure why the name was also changed from Tokyo to Neo Tokyo. Why is anything changed to Neo after a catastrophe happens? Very bizarre. I realize I'm saying this towards the end of the film instead of the beginning of the film, but you know how it is. So now Kay is free from their control, and Tetsuo is about to get his reward of finding out who is Akira. Ta-da! It's just a bunch of organs. I don't think Akira was Tetsuo's messiah. Sorry to say. Far from it, in fact. So they're going to use a giant satellite to try to kill him. And here we see that Tetsuo has even more so lost his mind. And here we have people just trying to escape the mayhem. They don't care about Akira anymore. Get the fuck out of the way! Trying to get through on bikes here. Don't have time. Your presence has been blown. Not that you're up to fight him yet, anyway. Again, more taunting, which I would think would be the last thing you want to do at this point. Tisk tisk. But of course, Kamida doesn't care anymore. He is here to kill his friend. That is his goal right now. Oddly enough, those containers can really take a beating, which is impressive. Surprisingly, Kameda survives that fall, so the battle between the two friends continues. Also impressive enough that he was able to injure Tetsuo, so that's also a plus. Not sure how he caused that explosion, but whatever. Superpowers, am I right? Yes, you did get him, but he seems to be perfectly fine. And your battery's dead. What the fuck do you think is gonna happen when you fight him in hand-to-hand combat? You think he's not gonna Superman your ass into the next dimension? Pretty sure that would happen. And then all of a sudden we see this blue light. Yeah, prepare to die. Welcome to satellites as weapons, folks. And we're about to see the most incredible thing when it comes to Tetsuo's powers at this point. It's just simply fantastic. Superman ain't got shit. on this. So Tetsuo's just like, you sons of bitches blew up my arm. And I love how Kamina's just like, I'm going to smash your head in. And then it's like, oh shit, the light's back. But surprisingly, Tetsuo is prepared for it this time and is able to block the shot. Just showing you the extent of his power, also being able to fly up into space like it's nothing. Sort of this comedic event here with him running. I love it. Reminded me of Vash the Stampede. So Tetsuo just kind of lands on the satellite, just like, bitch, I'ma end you. Also, the silence for when he's in space is a nice touch. There's absolutely no sound when he's up in space. And then somehow, also, as he's destroying it, it just releases beam after beam after beam. I am also impressed that he's able to keep up with the speed. Also, so much for being able to get on the bike, and just in the nick of time too, for blowing up the satellite, because that would have been the end for our heroes. So it seems like their last line of defense has been defeated. Meanwhile, the doctor is still studying this thing that we're not exactly sure what the fuck it is, and the movie never tells us. Just that it's magnificent. And Tetsuo builds an arm for himself. And now the brats have a plan. So there's all this data all over the floor. You know, I don't know what the data says, but it's just a bunch of squiggly lines. I'm not exactly sure what it tells him. But then again, I'm not a scientist. So, is what it is. And the colonel is pissed that this thing is still on. Just absolutely pissed. Just pissed. So now we're getting into the climax of the film. The final battle. Tetsuo versus Kamida versus those kids versus the colonel. Also setting the bike on fire. That poor bike. Save your bike, Kai. Save it. You can do it. That's quite a bit of travel. The Olympic throne. I don't even know if Olympic thrones are an actual thing. I don't really watch the Olympics, so if anybody wants to tell me if the Olympic throne is an actual thing for the Olympics, do not hesitate to let me know. And Tetsuo is suffering because his powers are starting to go out of control because he hasn't had any medication for quite some time. And here we have the Colonel, ready to make his last stand as well. Yeah, he lost his arm from a giant fucking laser beam. And here we see that his powers are starting to go out of control. Get away! She really is her downfall. Because she just never gets away. She stays by Tetsuo's side the entire time. And it really does cause her death. His power is finally being unleashed. But I don't know if they could get back in time, even if he agreed. So, I think he's gonna die no matter what. Kaori, run away! You fool! Don't just sit there. Run! Fuck. See, this is the problem. She starts to back up and then runs towards him. And it's just like. Here comes that foreshadowing moment, by the way. We saw bits flashing in the beginning of the film, and it wants to consume. Such a great scene. Just the way it all animates. Fantastic. Kaneda, you can do it. It's amazing that he drives his bike with that thing. Fantastic. He's just like, yeah, Tetsuo, I've got weapons and a bike. And somehow my bike is surprisingly super durable. And here comes the brats. No, they really don't. You should have shot him. Fuck Takashi. And now his body is now rejecting his powers, and he's just becoming an amorphous blob. Kaneda, do it. Kill him. as he becomes a giant baby. He really has some great shots, but never takes them. So it's almost his fault completely that Kawari dies. Yes. It's also kind of impressive that Kaneda doesn't explode. No, Tetsuo. She isn't dying. She's dead. Kawari's pain is coming inside me. Just continues to grow and become an amorphous blob. It's kind of surprising based on the fact that the amount of organic material is much smaller than that. And now it looks like the kernel will be consumed. And now the scientist, he can see that apparently all this data is showing the beginning of the universe. Just really stupid. That's about my only problem is it's like, yes, it's showing the creation of the universe. And it's like, this is the lamest part of this. And here comes Akira-chan. It's never really understood why it starts to recede. Like the kernel was about to be eaten and it's stopped for some reason. So Akira has come. Or is it only in the English dub that he calls it the beginning of the universe? So they teleport the kernel away. Get in the tunnel. Giant white beam of light. It has begun again 30 years earlier. 30 years later. I don't know why I said 30 years earlier. Just no fucks given. Seems like a bit of trouble. And of course, we think there's no way to save Tetsuo. Not Tetsuo. Kaneda. Tetsuo's done. There's no way to save him. The animation is just so great. I absolutely love it. So now they've decided to sacrifice themselves in order to see if they can save Kaneda. And of course, Kai and Kei are looking on as they see this giant sort of white beam just starts devouring everything in its path. And Kaneda is just kind of caught in the middle of it, unsure of what's going on, as we see sort of some of Tetsuo's memories. As he's being taught how to ride a bike. Of course, his bike looks like shit as compared to the others, so it's amazing how far he was able to get on it. And there he is being brought to, I want to call it the orphanage, but apparently it's a school, which makes no sense to me because it looks like an orphanage, but whatever. Maybe it's an orphanage inside of a school. And here we have sort of the meeting of Tetsuo and Kaneda. But before that, we sort of, what I assume is the meeting of the three kids and sort of their experiments or the experiments done on them. Is what it looks like. As they don't know what's going on, and then they're put to sleep to be operated on to become superpowered beings. But the difference is they seem to be told what is going on rather than not being told shit. So they are better prepared for this and don't become bloody goddamn monsters. Perhaps maybe if they had have done that with Tetsuo, nothing would have happened. And now Kaneda is being told that the power was too much for the five of them. And so they're sort of going to sacrifice themselves to stop the catastrophe from happening. And then they are kind of telling Kaneda that, Kay might have this power awoken within her as well. And then sort of this silent shot happening as it looks like Kaneda is escaping the events. But then we get the meeting between the two. God, that has to suck sniffing in while your nose is bleeding. Ugh. I would imagine that's horrible. Imagine breathing is also horrible if you've got a bloody nose. I don't have experience in that as I've never had a bloody nose. And I don't plan on it anytime soon. And here we have Kaneda being saved from the giant fucking explosion. As the explosion dissipates. So instead of expanding, it sort of goes in on itself. And instead of escaping, the scientist stays in there, continuing to read his notes. And it's like, yes, this is the creation of the universe. But wait, because of Akira and the other four, this now stops. So instead of the entire city being destroyed again, it's only a small area. I love that the whatever he's in, I think it was another vehicle, just implodes on itself, crushing him in the process. And then sort of this flooding happening inside the city as it starts to sort of tear itself apart. It's just very fantastic. And you sort of see this lack of color as sort of to represent this wasteland being created, but then you have color returning in the sky as the sun comes through the clouds to sort of represent that maybe all is not lost. As the color returns to the screen, it's a very nice sort of contrast. The gray, dismal destruction, and then this color returning to sort of show hope. Again, the colors are just so beautiful. It's fantastic. And then Kaneda saying farewell to Tetsuo. Congratulations on hearing your friend. And of course, somehow, that fucking bike survived all that shit. Kai's reaction is fantastic. Almost like a comic relief. But also glad to see his friend still alive. Bright sunny skies. So yeah, this time not the entire city was destroyed. Just a small area. Well, not so small. See, somehow this goddamn bike still survives. Like, what the f. And of course, we lose that bright and colorful nightlife, obviously, as we're in daytime. And here we are at the end of the film. I'd like to thank you all for watching as we have Tetsuo giving us farewell.